Does a life exist after death? Does a life exist after death? If so, what kind is it? This question is actually very far outside the reach of our available knowledge. We lack the vision to peer beyond the threshold of death, to see what exists or does not exist there. We also lack the hearing to catch any sounds from that realm. Furthermore, we possess no instruments capable of observing or determining whether anything exists after death. Therefore, as far as science is concerned, this question is entirely outside its domain. Anyone who asserts, in the name of science, that there is no life after death is, in fact, presenting an unscientific and illogical argument. Unless some definitive, clear path to knowledge is obtained, it is impossible to state, in the light of science, whether or not another life exists after death. The policy of neither denying nor affirming life after death would, at the very least, be the scientific policy. The challenge of the afterlife question in practical life, however, is it possible to adhere to this scientific policy in one's practical life? Perhaps not indeed. It is certainly impossible. When we lack the means to know the reality of an object, it is logically possible to refrain from arguing for or against its existence. But when that very object is related to our practical life, we have no choice but to build our course of action on either its affirmation or its denial. For example, if we have no dealings with a stranger, it may be possible for us to reserve judgment on their trustworthiness, neither deeming them trustworthy nor untrustworthy. However, if we must interact with that person, we are compelled to deal with them, believing them to be either trustworthy or not. While it is true that we might deal with them with suspicion, as long as their trustworthiness is unproven, it is clear that an action based on suspicion regarding their trustworthiness is, in effect, equivalent to an action based on the denial of their trustworthiness. Therefore, the state of doubt between denial and affirmation can only persist in the heart. A course of action can never be built upon doubt. For that, either affirmation or denial is absolutely necessary in some form. The afterlife and moral conduct. The problem of life after death is not merely a philosophical one, it is inseparably linked to our practical life. A little reflection reveals this fact. Our entire moral and ethical system is actually dependent on this very question. If I believe that this worldly life is the only life, and that nothing exists beyond it, my moral approach will be of one kind. Conversely, if I believe that another life exists after this worldly life, that I will have to give an account of all my actions here, and that the good or bad consequences there depend on the deeds done here, my moral approach will be entirely different from the first. We can understand this with an illustration. Imagine one person traveling who believes they only need to go as far as Mumbai, that their journey ends forever upon reaching it, and that they will escape all powers like the police and courts that might question them. Another person undertakes the journey believing that the trip to Mumbai is only the first stage of their travel, that they must cross the sea to another land, that the king ruling their home country is the same ruler there, and that the king possesses a secret record of all their actions in the home country, and will examine those records there to dispense rewards and punishments according to their deeds. You can yourself imagine how different the conduct of these two individuals will be. The first person will only make preparations for the journey up to Mumbai. The second, however, will also make preparations for the long stages beyond. The first will perceive that gains and losses are only relevant until reaching Mumbai, and that nothing matters after that. The second will understand that the real profits and losses will be revealed not in the initial stage, but in the final stage of the journey. The first will only look at the consequences of actions that appear during the trip to Mumbai. The second's gaze will be fixed on the ultimate consequences that will manifest after entering the other land beyond the sea. The difference in the practical conduct of these two individuals is clearly a direct result of the opinions they formed about the nature of the journey. The state of our moral life is the same. Our belief about life after death exerts a decisive influence on our ethical life. It is either the denial or the affirmation of life after death that determines the destiny of every step we take in the realm of action. When we step into the field of action, treating this worldly life as both the beginning and the end, our steps begin to move in one direction. When we commence action with a view toward life after death and its ultimate consequences, our steps will begin to move in an entirely different direction. The need for a new world system is clear from this that the problem of life after death is not merely contemplative or philosophical. It is a problem of practical life. If this is the truth, it is impossible for us to remain in a state of doubt regarding this matter. A policy adopted with doubt in life is equivalent to a policy adopted with denial. Therefore, we are compelled in every way to determine whether or not a life exists after death. If science does not help us in this regard, we must seek the aid of intellectual evidence. So, what are the resources we have for gathering intellectual proof? One is man himself, and the other is the cosmic system we live in. Let us examine man within the framework of the cosmic system. Are all the needs and interests of everything that exists within him fully satisfied in this system? Or does something remain unfulfilled in him, such that a different kind of system is required? Man has a body, which is an aggregate of various minerals, salts, water, and gases. These same substances, soil, rock, metals, water, air, exist in the universe, and all the laws necessary for their functioning are present in the universe. Just as these laws provide opportunity for mountains, oceans, and air to complete their functions in the external world, the mineral, air, and water components of the human body also have a full opportunity for their corresponding functions. Man is a living being that grows by taking sustenance from his surroundings. Creatures of this kind, such as trees and plants, also exist in the universe, and the laws required for growing bodies are found there as well. Furthermore, man is a conscious being with free will. He gathers food through his own effort, protects his body, and makes arrangements for the survival of his species. Numerous creatures of this type exist in the universe on land, in water, and in the air, and the laws necessary for the functions of growing, conscious beings operate fully there. Man, of all, has another existence, which we call moral existence. Man has a sense of good and evil, the power to distinguish between them, and the power to perform both good and bad actions. His nature demands that good deeds result in good consequences and bad deeds in bad consequences. He recognizes and understands various qualities like justice, injustice, truth, falsehood, compassion, cruelty, gratitude, ingratitude, generosity, miserliness, trustworthiness, and deception. These qualities are evident in his practical life. These are not mere figments of imagination. Their consequences are reflected in human civilization. Therefore, human nature powerfully demands that the moral consequences of human actions must manifest, just like the natural consequences. However, consider this cosmic system profoundly. Is it possible for the moral consequences of human actions to fully manifest here? I assert with certainty that it is not possible, because the necessary framework for it has not been established here. As far as we know, no other creature with moral existence besides man is found here. The entire cosmic system operates according to natural law, and moral laws do not appear to have supremacy anywhere. Here, money has value and standing. Truth has no such guaranteed standing or value. Here, a mango seed always sprouts into a mango tree. However, those who sow the seed of truth are sometimes showered with flowers, but sometimes and often are met with abuse, aggression, and persecution. Here, physical substances yield specific results according to fixed laws. However, there are no definite laws that ensure moral values always yield specific results. Due to the dominance of natural laws, moral consequences often do not manifest at all, or when they do, they are only to the extent permitted by natural laws. Moreover, it frequently happens that a specific result is required by morality for an action, but due to the interference of natural laws, a completely different result appears outwardly. Though man has attempted to make the moral consequences of human actions manifest according to a fixed system through his civil and political structures, this is extremely limited and imperfect. On one hand, Natural laws make it limited and imperfect, and on the other, man's own numerous shortcomings and weaknesses further increase its imperfection and impracticality. Examples let me clarify my intention with a few examples. 1. If a person, out of enmity, sets fire to another's house, it burns down. This is the natural consequence of their action. The moral consequence is that the perpetrator should suffer punishment equivalent to the damage inflicted upon the family. But for this moral consequence to manifest, what conditions must be met? The arsonist must be identified. The police must catch them. The crime must be proven. The court must be able to accurately calculate the total damage done to the family and its future generations because the house was burnt. And then, the criminal must be given a just punishment. If even one of these conditions is not fulfilled, the moral consequence will either not appear at all, or only a small fraction will appear. It is possible for the offender to destroy their adversary and their family, and yet live a life of comfort and joy. 2. Consider a broader example. A few individuals gain influence in society, and the community begins to move according to their command. Utilizing this opportunity, they stir up communal bias and imperialistic sentiment, wage war against neighboring nations, kill millions of people, destroy many countries, and force billions of people to live degraded and miserable lives. These atrocities cause terrible consequences in human history, which future generations suffer for centuries. Do you believe it is possible for the few individuals responsible for these terrible crimes to receive a punishment that is just and proportionate to their guilt in this worldly life? Even if each of them were cut into pieces, burned alive, or punished in every way humanly possible, it is quite clear that this punishment would not be equivalent to the devastation they inflicted upon billions of people and their countless future generations. It is utterly impossible for them to receive proportionate punishment according to the natural laws operating in this cosmic system. Now, with the virtuous people, they taught truth and the right path to mankind, lighting the lamp of guidance. Human generations have reaped the good fruits of this for many centuries, and will continue to do so for a long time to come. Can you imagine that it is possible for these good people to receive a full reward for their great services in this world? If the result of a person's work does not end with their death, but continues to spread among many human generations for thousands of years, how can you conceive that they can enjoy the full reward within the framework of the current natural laws? As stated earlier, first, the opportunity for the full moral consequences of human actions to manifest does not exist within the current natural laws. Second, the impact of man's short life of activity is so vast and far-reaching that the full consequence of each action can only be experienced over a life of countless years. According to the existing natural laws, such a long life is not available to man. From this, one thing becomes clear: while the current natural world and its laws are sufficient for the physical components of human existence, this world is completely inadequate for its moral and ethical components. Another world system is required. The ruling law in that system must be the moral law, with natural law operating only in a subordinate, supportive capacity. Life in it must be immense and limitless. All moral consequences that did not manifest or manifested oppositely in this world must appear correctly and fully there. There, truth and goodness must have weight, measure, and value, silver and gold. There, fire should only burn what deserves to be morally incinerated. There, comfort and joy must only be for the righteous, and sorrow and suffering only for the wicked. Intelligence desires and nature demands that such a world must come into existence. The verdict of the Quran is for intellectual evidence. It leads us only to the boundary that such a world is necessary. The question of whether such a world actually exists is one that both intellect and science are powerless to answer. It is here that the Quran comes to our aid. It tells us that what your intellect and your nature demand will, in fact, happen. The current world system, based on natural laws, will one day be destroyed, and another system will be formed. In that system, the heavens, the earth, and all other things will be in a state different from the present. Then, God will resurrect all human beings from the beginning of the world until the last day and present them before Him simultaneously. The life record of every individual, every community, and the entire human race will be securely stored there without any reduction or increase. A complete report of the consequences that each person's actions had in this world will also be present. All the generations who were affected by those consequences will be presented in the witness box. Every atom bearing the imprint of man's words and deeds will tell its story. Indeed, every organ, hands, feet, eyes, ears will bear witness and reveal how man used them. The Supreme Judge will then pronounce judgment with perfect justice, determining who is worthy of what rewards and punishments. These rewards and punishments will be vast and extensive. It will be impossible to calculate them using the limited measures of the current world system. The spatial and temporal standards there will be different from those here. Values and measures will be different. The natural law there will be of another kind. The full fruit of all of man's good deeds and consequences that extended for thousands of years in this world will be enjoyed there. Neither death, nor sickness, nor old age will interrupt the joys and comforts there. Similarly, the appropriate punishment for all of man's wicked deeds and consequences that spread among countless generations for thousands of years in this world will have to be endured there. Neither death nor unconsciousness will provide relief from that punishment. I feel pity for the small-mindedness of those who think such a world and life are impossible. If our current world system, with its current natural laws, is possible, why shouldn't another world system with a different set of laws come into existence? However, definitively proving that such a world will exist is not within the domain of either logic or science. For that, belief in the unseen is necessary.